Are you tired of the pandemic? Are you emotionally exhausted from working from home? Even though you've done it for years before now, and it's just a lot harder than you expected it to be when you can't see your friends and you're struggling, but also all your friends are struggling too, and that makes you extra sad. Are you, I don't know, physically exhausted by how tired mentally you always are, and it feels like your brain is rotting, so you stay in bed because everything just kind of sucks this year, and you finally get up to make dinner, and you haven't even done anything, but you still go, I'm too tired to even think about eating, actually, I'm just gonna go back to bed. Well, dear viewer, who I'm definitely not projecting on, sounds like you deserve a mental health break, so why not kick back and play some of this video's sponsor's Lord of Heroes? It is a very pretty free-to-play anime RPG where you assume the role of the monarch of Avalon. The world around you has fallen to war-torn corruption, and your goal is recruiting charismatic knights in your end goal of either occupying or allying with the other territories in an attempt to bring the continent back to its former glory. They've got almost 50 knights to play, but it's not actually a character gacha game. The gacha pulls are actually equipment like weapons and armor, which you use to customize the characters that you like to your liking. Which, this isn't a diss at character gacha games at all. But while playing, I realized that because they had a lot less focus on adding new characters to the gacha consistently, that they were really expanding on individual character personalities instead. Like, they're all really distinct from each other, and I'm just really kind of like into it. The character you play is sassy as hell. This character, Charlotte, she already looks super cute, but then she keeps doing and saying these really cute things, and then this fairy showed up, and I lost my mind. Look at her go, she's baby. I'm just extremely endeared by these characters, and I like how they interact with each other. But yeah, it's a pretty cool game. It's really pretty. And they're currently adding new chapters to the story, new game modes for more experienced players who are looking for more challenges to test their strategies on, and new alchemy systems to help you pull the character equipment that you want. It's all pretty cool. If Lord of Heroes sounds like something that might be fun for you, you can check it out in the App Store with my link in the description down below. Otherwise, on with the video. Howdy hey, I'm Ray. I've been gone for a minute. This video's audio quality probably isn't going to be great. It's only really like half scripted. I'm not really sure how much I can stomach to edit the audio. This video really exists to give more a bit of an update on myself and my status, which isn't great, for the record. But I've also got one story out of everything that's been going on, which is admittedly morbid, but hopefully we can all laugh about it together now that it's over. The past few months haven't been extremely kind on me. There's not really anything that set it off, or at least I don't remember the inciting incident, but in general, I've had lots of different things of various sizes or intensities building up to the point where I'm at. I know in general, I've had this building fear for a while when it came to making videos, that I wasn't writing or drawing or coming up with anything that was good enough or funny enough or entertaining or like worth somebody's time. So on that front, I was in a productivity rut, and I was being self-conscious on top of that, and I was being mad at myself because I was too self-conscious to be productive. And it was just a really fun cycle. But that's like just YouTube work. You know, I have a million other projects going on outside of YouTube, so I was still trying to work on those. I was having a bit of a hard time getting my mind to cooperate with my hand. I got on some new medication for a couple things that I don't really feel the need to mention here, but in general, while they made me more productive, which is what I was hoping for, that was great, you know. I also got pretty depressed as a side effect of just adjusting to the new medication, which has happened before. I wasn't like shocked or anything by it. I kind of figured it would happen, and I knew because I've gone through it before that it was temporary. It would wear off when I adjusted, so I figured I'd just tough it out. But it certainly didn't help with the self-esteem issues I was facing already in the moment. I started falling into my old eating disorder, and my health was physically deteriorating. I totally fucked up my sleep schedule in attempts to just get something done. I don't remember if I've mentioned this before, but also for a long time, my stress has been so bad that my teeth have been having a lot of problems because of it. And with all of this stuff happening recently, I just had the feeling I was probably making it worse, and that sort of thought in the back of my mind wasn't helping. And then I just started getting faced with just a bunch of really distressing news, like from all these different places. Some were more serious than others. Some were just fucking devastating. And some of it, like, I knew logically I wasn't responsible for it, but, like, it's just one of those things where you hear about it and you're like, I feel responsible for it, you know? Like, you feel like you should have done something better. But, like, of course, like, it's one of those things, right? And in general, through all of this, it made a lot of old feelings of trauma resurface, and I was going through it. I've been going through it. Lots of bad coping mechanisms forming. Spent a lot of time wallowing. You probably get the picture. I'm doing a little bit better now. Maybe I'm on an upwards trajectory is a better term. I'm not out of the woods yet, but I'm back to building better habits. I have some people helping me to organize my shit so I can try to peacefully get back to work on everything that I have going on. I think I can handle this. I can pull through. But in order to start getting back on track, I need to start uploading again. And instead of just posting something fun and like pretending it's all normal and that nothing happened, I figured I'd at least start off by being open and honest about it first. And after this, we can get back to the regularly scheduled bullshittery. So hi, I'm Reagan. I'm not doing great, but I'm working on it. And I was in a bit of a fever pitch for a bit. I don't know if that word's been used outside of, like, Pokemon Coliseum. Is that Coliseum? No, Gale of Darkness. Was it in both games? Fuck it, I don't know. While I was in these months of being upset, however many months it was, I tried a few different things to cheer myself up. I tried playing a couple different video games, but I don't think I finished a single one. I restarted Skyrim after I rage quit Super Mario Sunshine because I couldn't even get up to the first boss. That was a real gamer moment. That was cute. I binged a lot of horror movies. I came to the realization that I have a recurring tendency to watch horror when I'm upset. I contemplated the deeper meaning of that, what that really says about me and my psyche. And then I continued to binge watching horror movies. I was also compelled to pick up knitting. I couldn't tell you why, but I'm working on my first scarf. But the biggest thing that I did to try and cheer myself up is what I really want to focus on here, which is that I got a fish tank. I got, like, a couple fish tanks. Okay. So, I moved out when I, like, just turned 18. And I don't remember what compelled me back then to get a fish tank. I think my mom just found that one of our neighbors was selling their big one, and since she was helping me move stuff to my new apartment, she was just asking, like, oh, do you want this to decorate with? And I went, fuck it, sure, okay, fish mode. And that tank was a learning experience. I filled it up right away with all these pretty decorations, and I got strictly, like, non-aggressive, just nice, peaceful community fish. It looked gorgeous, and I don't know, I fell in love with it really quickly. I really liked owning fish, and with this first tank, when I was 18, just out of absolutely nowhere, like literally unprompted, I started noticing these really long, like, black strings forming on some of the decorations, and then I blinked, and they overtook the tank, and all my fish died, and that sucked. And while I was trying to look it up, the lesson that I pulled from Google is that sometimes fish just die. Like, they're fragile and fickle, and sometimes even experienced tank owners run into disaster out of nowhere. So I kept that in mind, and I cleaned the tank out, and I looked up everything that I could do from that moment forward to keep my tank as safe and clean as possible, and I started over, and that second tank went great, and I loved those fish, and I never had another outbreak again. And I loved those fish so much that back then I got 2 more tanks. I got one nice one just for a betta fish, and then I got another, like, a little bit bigger than the betta fish one, but, like, of course smaller than the big community one. And I filled that just with Blackmore goldfish. And I couldn't tell you why, but I decided back then that black moors were my favorite. They're the black goldfish with the really pretty tails, and they've got like the gigantic eyes, and they're stupid. And their faces and their eyes look stupid. They're just these little fat, great bundles, and I just love them. But that was when I was 18. So when I moved out of that apartment, I moved to another state at the end of that year. I hadn't really planned on doing that, so I wasn't able to take my fish tanks with me, so they were rehomed, and I really missed owning fish every single day. The second apartment that I had wasn't nearly big enough to get another tank, and the third one, I wasn't there long enough, nor was I financially stable in my time there long enough to get another one. And that's when I had to move back in with my family for a bit that I've mentioned before. And I had the room and the money for a tank then, but my room, which was in my parents' house, was carpeted, and my parents didn't want to risk a fish tank getting like on the carpet, and it was their house, so I wasn't about to argue what I do in their house. But then I moved out again, and in my last house, I still couldn't really find a place to put a tank. So at this point, it's been like a solid 4 years of like yearning, you know? Like I've been wanting a tank for all 4 years. And all I could do to like, I don't know, satisfy myself was I would keep sneaking off to the fish section of pet stores, and anytime I was near one, so I could just like look at the tanks and just get my fix. So I moved again pretty recently into a different house, and I really, really like this house. And here I am right now in the middle of a stress meltdown. And I was so desperate for something to make me happy, because it clearly wasn't Mario Sunshine, that I thought, okay, maybe it's just time to finally get another tank. Maybe it's just the universe saying that like I can let myself have this. So my mom helped me get it's a really big one. It's the biggest tank I've ever owned. And I spent a long time looking through and ordering the decorations I wanted and trying to research about the tank conditions for some fish that I knew I wanted and what supplies I would need to get for them. And I was really excited. And when I tell you that this tank was a fucking nightmare. Telling this story is difficult because, not just because it upsets me, but because it upsets me so much that I realized that I've actually ejected a lot of the details from my mind. Like, I just don't remember bits and pieces of it. Like, I tried to tell some friends recently, and it was, like, all out of order. Like, I tried to tell my friends the other day, and this didn't happen that long ago, so I shouldn't be telling things out of order and forgetting bits and parts of it, but, like, it really upset me. So I've been trying, I guess, really hard to not think about it, and I guess I was a little successful. Basically, the story we're going to be telling here is me sitting and staring at this fish tank like a TV screen and trying to sort out multiple murder mysteries, and this tank that I got to give me an endorphin boost basically made my mental state so much worse. Like I say, I was having a meltdown before the tank, but like I actually snapped a bit. It's because of the tank that I got to make me happy. It worked really well. And I don't want to say that everything went wrong because of PetSmart. The store I got everything from, the store I got most things from. The tank I got by myself, the big one, but we'll get back to that. Because I do need to take some personal accountability, you know, like me buying these fish, that's me taking, I was making myself responsible for their lives. I was supposed to give these fish long, happy lives. So, of course, I have to take some accountability there. But I'm not thrilled with the pet store. And this starts with personal responsibility. I wanted to get a different sort of community for the tank this time. Like, back when I was 18, I got strictly, like, very docile fish that just kind of bumper card around, you know, like, nothing aggressive. There was literally never a fight in those other tanks. But for the 4 years that I've been like ogling at fish tanks in stores and waiting until I could get another tank again, I was pretty attached to the idea that I wanted to get a tank centered around angelfish. So I was looking up proper tank mates for angelfish. And the thing with angelfish, for anyone who's not like super familiar with tanks, is that they're known to be like kind of aggressive. So you have to pick their tank mates properly so that you're not just dumping fish into like a Spartan arena, you know? It's like the same way that you wouldn't put two beta fish together because you know they get into a fight. You want to be careful with what you put in a tank with another aggressive fish so they don't get into a fight. You know what I'm saying? So I was really focused on trying to research this, and I really quickly started to find a lot of conflicting information on what could or couldn't be tank mates with them. Like, for example, I saw one article that said that angelfish would get along great with black moors, which I read that and I was like, aha, I love black moors, but I also went, wait a minute. Like, I know from having goldfish before that you're really only supposed to put goldfish with other goldfish because goldfish give off a lot of ammonia and they make an environment that only really they should be in, if that makes sense. So, like, this didn't make sense that people were saying they could go together, so I tried looking up more, and I found multiple sources that said, no, absolutely do not put them together, and I found multiple sources saying, oh yeah, do it, it's fine, whatever. So, I took my research with a grain of salt, and I went to the PetSmart with the plan of talking to the salesperson about the information I had and getting their suggestions. And what I learned through multiple salespeople was that I don't think these people have to know anything about fish to work this job. And I think PetSmart probably doesn't have any business selling a good amount of the fish they sell. The reason I put a lot of faith into the information they gave me verbally is because I'm dyslexic, and other than the fact that I was getting like conflicting article information in general, reading a bunch of articles, especially when I have to do so much extra research because I'm getting all this different info, like just that much text, like all these bodies of text, they're really difficult for me to go through. So I was trusting that these people who were selling these fish at a pet store would know what was up, and that like the interaction between them when I could ask questions in real time, and like they could probably ask someone else in the store if someone else knew better. I trusted that. Huge mistake. I should have just had my friends read for me or something. It's a huge mistake, because I asked them with each and every fish I bought if these could all go together, and I got confirmation on all of them. And again, it was kind of weird to me that I was getting conflicting information. Like, I already knew that the articles didn't really match up, but a lot of the fish that I read pretty consistently online would go with angelfish. I would ask a sales associate, I would say, hey, can I get this with angelfish? And they'd say, no, that doesn't work. It's so weird, but I was choosing to trust the people that I was able to talk to directly because I figured they knew better, and I ended up going to get fish in like a couple waves. Like, I hit a few stores over a few different days because I'm really anal about aesthetics. I wanted to handpick the fish that I thought would look best with the decorations that I had. I only wanted to get like one of each kind of fish, or at least I wanted to get, if they were the same species, I wanted to get fish that looked different from each other because I wanted to name all of them. And each time I went to the store, I told the sales associate the size of my tank and what kind of community I had, and that I wanted them to go with angelfish, and I was making sure that I wasn't bringing a problem child home. So, let's get to the tank. Like I said before, sometimes fish just die. And the very first day of me having a fish in my tank, I had about 4. Sorry, the very first day of me having fish in my tank, I had about 4. I had some friends name 3 of them for me, and I named the last one myself. And the one that I named, it died the next day. It died of what I have to assume was stress, and that's very common. Like, fish just do that sometimes. They don't like going in cars. They're not made to go in cars, you know. So sometimes they just get too stressed out on the trip, and they get too stressed out from the new home, and they just die. And sucked. I said, okay. I named that one. Yeah, that's a me move. And I scooped him out, and I said, Mood, I would also die of stress. And I was upset that I lost a fish, but I wasn't really, like, worried, you know? Like, I knew from experience that fish sometimes just don't make the first couple days in a new home, which is just an unfortunate start. But little did I fucking know that this was just an omen, and I would soon follow him down the toilet because I would die of stress. I mentioned at the beginning that this does get kind of morbid, and I was serious, so content warning if you're a bit squeamish. After that first, like, round of the 4 fishes, that's when I went and I got 2 more batches from 2 other stores over, like, 2 other days. And I then, after those 3 days of grabbing, like, rounds of fish, I had, like, everything was great. I checked with everyone that I went to, and they all said these fish go with angelfish, and I put them all together, and other than that one fish, it was fine. Other than there was one instant, like, right off the bat, that again, like, set a standard that I should have paid more attention to, that I was admiring my beautiful tank, and I walked out of my room, and I came back into my room, and one of them was missing an eye. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure he had an eye when I bought him. I had to I didn't know who he got into a fight with. He had to have gotten into a fight. I don't think he poked his eye out on something, but he was swimming around normally now, like he wasn't really bothered by it. So I watched the tank for a bit, and everything seemed fine. Like, it didn't seem like anybody was being an asshole still, or like anybody was being particularly antsy. So I had no idea who could have done it, and I assumed it was just a one-time spat, and I put some medicine in the tank for him, and I kept a close eye. But after that, we had a good couple days of that having been the only problem, and I was happy, and I enjoyed my tank, and I liked to look at it, and I felt happy that, like, damn, I made a really pretty tank, and look at all these pretty little fish, and they're just living their lives, and they're stupid, and they don't have very long memories, and wouldn't that be just such a wonderful life? I did notice that in those first couple days, one of the smallest fish in the tank, it was being a bit of a pest. Like, he was constantly chasing the other fish and clearly, like, irritating them, which it was concerning because I was under the impression that he was supposed to be non-aggressive, and here this tiny idiot was picking at, like, my giant angelfish, which are aggressive, and they probably could have killed him, but, I mean, the angelfish that I had were really calm from what I saw, so they were good, but it's just, like, it was concerning, right? I Googled his species, and I was hit with 3, count them, 1, 2, 3, gigantic oversights from the pet store that the employees failed to tell me, or maybe they just didn't know. For one, he was a schooling fish, which I didn't know that, nor did I know what being a schooling fish really meant. Turns out that schooling fish like to be in groups with, like, their same species, which that's what I would assume schooling fish means. What I didn't assume is that it's not just that they like to be in groups of their same species, it's that they'll act out if they aren't in a group. So, you know, that's cool. And the second thing I found out was that he was an aggressive fish, and being without his school of fish meant that he was extra agitated and extra feisty, extra aggressive. So that's cool. And the third thing I found out was that they're notorious fin nippers. So every single thing I read online said that these fish shouldn't ever be paired with fish that have long, elegant fins, like angelfish, which the sales associate didn't. They knew I had angelfish, and they knew I was only buying a single one of these fish, and they failed to tell me anything about that could have been a problem. That wasn't cute. You know, I didn't know what to do about it. I was looking at this guy, I didn't know what to do. I wasn't sure if the store would take him back. I didn't want to get more fish to appease him because I was worried that, like, having more of them, they'd continue to nip at the angelfish, and then we'd have, like, an entire group, and I was worried about, like, I don't know, like a street war or something. Turf war, is that the word? I don't know. I was scared they'd all get into fights. I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't have to because it was getting late. The stores are closing early because of the pandemic. So I had until morning to think about it, but I only had the one tank, so I was just kind of stuck with him in there and hoping that it didn't go bad. So I stayed in my room, and I worked from my bed so I could keep an eye out and I could catch him if I needed to. And I think it was that same night. I don't fucking know. I think it was the same night. But whether it was the same night or not, it was within the same 10 minutes these next two things happened. I looked up once, and I realized that one of my angelfish was floating by the fake plants, and it was just dead. Like, she was just dead. And she looked totally fine, like, a few minutes ago, and I was heartbroken. I fished her out. I had no idea what happened. I took care of the body. I had nothing else to do but to sit down and get back to work. And I look up 10 minutes later, and now I see that fish who lost an eye at the very beginning is also dead. And neither of them looked like they had just been into a fight. I boiled it down to maybe it was stress. Like, kind of late stage for the angelfish to be stressed and die from that, but I understood why Patchy the pirate would have been just stressed out. So I don't know, it was so suspicious that I lost two in like the same instant, and I was upset. It was upsetting. So I was looking around the tank for any answers as to what could have possibly happened, and then I noticed that one of the other angelfish had these little white markings on it that I was pretty sure weren't there before. And after some research, me and my roommate came to the horrifying realization that these angelfish that I bought were sick. They must have been sick when I bought them. The last two clearly both had it. The last two remaining angelfish clearly were both sick, and I was fucked. Because again, it was too late in the evening, the stores were closed, I didn't have a second tank to put these guys in to protect my other fish, I didn't have any of the right medicine for this particular ailment, and the stuff I had before was just like it was just for general wounds, so like that wouldn't do anything for a sickness. So all I could do was turn the temperature up a bit to try and slow any spread, to try and prevent it from getting to my other fish, and just to make my battle plans for the next morning so I could run to the stores as soon as they opened and like grab everything I needed to try and save these fish. And I had to go to bed knowing full well that I could wake up to dead bodies, or worse, that just this whole thing could have already spread and I might have already lost my entire tank to another freak illness again that only happened because the store sold me sick fish. So I wake up in the morning, and I ran to the store, I stocked up on the right medicine, and I bought another, from PetSmart, I bought a smaller tank that was supposed to be, like, had all the supplies that you needed in it, right? Like, it had a filter, and a proper lid, and all the, like, air filtration, all the good stuff, you know? I already had spare gravel at home, and I ran back, and my roommate helped me set it up as quickly as possible, and dole out the medicine in both tanks. Both angelfish ended up dying in the quarantine tank. I didn't get the medicine to them fast enough. That sucked. But it looked like all the other fish were fine. I don't think any of them caught it. It sucked, but I could walk away from this having at least learned that quarantine tank was necessary, and I should have had one sooner, and now I had it here if I needed it. So I cleaned it up, and I kept it plugged in and running just in case any of the other fish did get sick, so I could act immediately this time. And those were the last of the quote-unquote easy deaths. Easy because while it sucked so bad, ultimately, like, these were complete accidents, like, that I don't think I could have really done anything about, and we should have been fine from here. Like, we should have been fine from here. But it got so much worse. The next morning I wake up, I'm pretty sure it was the next morning, I don't know, and half the fins were missing on one of my fish. And yet again, I'm baffled. I sit there, and I watched the tank for a while, and I'm trying to sort out, like, who he got into a fight with. But I can't figure it out for the life of me. Because he looked like he was okay, all things considered. Like, as okay as he could be, given the fin situation. He was just kind of swimming around like normal. So I put in some more wound medicine just in case, and I was watching for any sort of signs of, like, some fish that was, like, agitated or looking for a fight. I couldn't figure it out. I looked around, I couldn't find anything. I was hoping maybe it was just like that fish who lost an eye and that he'd be fine. And I came back later, and oh my god, this poor guy was practically, like, skinned. All of his fins, all of them were gone. Most of his scales were gone. He was colorful before, like he was black and orange, and now he looked white because something just, like, gnawed at the outer layer of his body, I guess, and took all of the color off of him. And it was really awful to look at. This clearly wasn't just, like, a fight. Like, it was blatantly a murder. Like, he was attacked twice in a day, and the damage was such overkill. Like, you could say that the fish that lost an eye, whatever took its eye, it might have been an accident. It was a little, like, dominant spat, and they weren't trying to kill the other fish. And when he died later, it was just like, oh, well, oops. But, like, this was, like, whatever killed it, like, set out to do that, you know? Like, it had to have. So I sit down again, and I'm, like, looking at this tank, because I'm like, now I'm really concerned. Like, someone was out for blood. And out of everything left in the tank, I can only really come down to 2 guesses. And one was a fish that was the same species as the one who just died, because he was looking like, he was the one that was swimming around the fastest, and I don't know, something about how active he was. I was like, maybe he's agitated. And the other was my bala shark. So, just for anyone who doesn't know about fish, freshwater sharks are a thing, and they're not the same as ocean sharks, not even a little, and you can own them. They do get big. They're literally described as gentle giants, though. Like, I thought maybe it was him because he's so big, you know? He's like a few inches long, you know, but they're known for being docile, and he's been so chill in this tank, so I couldn't imagine it was him. And I tried looking up the species of the fish that died, the one that I had a second one of that was looking kind of suspicious. And it said that, oh, well, sometimes if you have 2 males, they'll get into fights, but usually that's when there's a female around, and I didn't have a third one, so I couldn't have accidentally had 2 boys and a girl, because I only had 2. Now I had 1. But, I mean, I don't know, I couldn't imagine it was a shark, and this guy was acting kind of weird. So I just put my money on him. And I decided, I took him out of that tank and I put him in the quarantine tank. And I figured if everything was peaceful, then I'd know that I got the right culprit. And if another dead fish showed up, then I'd be pretty positive that it must have been the bala shark. Because again, like it's the biggest one. Like, all my other fish were pretty small. Like, I guess that doesn't necessarily uncast it out. I don't know. I don't remember my thinking. I've tried not to think. Sure is fucking shit. 2 days later, I'm working in the living room, and I come back to my room, and I find a fish that's been what I can only describe as gutted. It was gruesome. It was gross. I felt gutted, and it was really starting to freak me out that it felt like all I had to do was blink, and another fish would die. And so I knew at this point, like, it had to be the bala shark. I put the wrongly accused fish back in the big tank, and I put the bala shark in the quarantine tank. And then, I don't remember why, but I was compelled to, like, look them up. I was pretty sure I had the right guy, but I felt like I needed to look him up. And turns out, bala sharks are also schooling fish. They're known to be docile, gentle giants, but only when they're in groups, and they're aggressive when they're alone. And here's why it's a huge fucking problem that the pet store didn't tell me this. Bala sharks can grow to be really big. The sales associate told me that my tank could have 1 in it, and they said 1. And the safely recommended number to keep, like, how many bala sharks you should have to keep them happy because they're schooling fish, apparently is 5. the size of tank you need to safely house 5 fully grown bala sharks is obscene. Like, you need like 150 gallons. Do you have any idea how big that is? Like, those are the kinds of tanks that you can only fit in living rooms. Like, those are the kind of tanks that can flood your fucking floors if they break. Like, a 150-gallon tank is longer than I am tall. And those are the kinds of tanks that you might have to hire a contractor to come install in your house because they're really heavy and they could break your floors. Like, honestly, how many people own tanks that big? I'm 23 and I've seen one person in my entire life, one family who's owned a tank that size. And, you know, PetSmart is constantly, they've constantly got bala sharks in these tanks. Like, in stores, like, they've got tanks full of them. How many people going to PetSmart on a weekly basis when they're getting new supplies of fish weekly? How many people going to PetSmart have 150-gallon tanks and know that they need to buy 5 bala sharks because they need... It's $1,000 tank. You have to spend like $1,000 to get 150 gallons. That is obscene. If you get one, your fish will get slaughtered. How many people know this? I didn't. The people at PetSmart apparently didn't. God, it was unbelievably upsetting to learn. And now I really didn't know what to do because I can't put him back in my big tank because he's just going to kill everybody. I literally can't get more because they will get big enough that they're just going to be like sandwiched in there and they can't move because they get so big. And he can't stay in the quarantine tank because he's already like maybe 3-4-ish inches. I don't know. And this quarantine tank is like 1.5 feet long, maybe, you know? Like, he can fit now, but he's gonna outgrow it real fast. So I don't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. And it was too late to go to a store and ask or try and return him. I didn't know what to do. And I got so stressed out after reading all this, I just went back to bed. Or not back to, I went to bed. I went to bed out of stress. And I woke up, and the problem was gone. Because the fish was gone. This giant shark, this giant few-inch long shark, handful of inches long shark, in a tank that only has gravel, that's not very big, is just gone. What the fuck? Like honestly, what the fuck? I did get another cat recently, and she's like always in my room because she isn't quite getting along with Bella and Jenko yet. So it would be easy for someone to assume that like, oh, maybe your cat got into the tank and she ate him. But I really couldn't reasonably see that happening. Like, the way that the lid was on this tank, it did have an opening, but it was by the filter, and it was really thin. Like, the way that the opening worked, like, it would have been really difficult for her to get her paw into, and really, 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 really difficult for her to move around in, and really easy for him to just swim away from her. But one of the things that I read the night before was that bala sharks can jump out of water. And I genuinely think that it's more likely that he jumped out of the slit near the filter and either fell behind the furniture or that he jumped out and my cat got him from there. So I moved my furniture around in an attempt to look for him, and I couldn't find a trace. Just like absolutely nothing. This guy was like gonzo. He was gone. And this is the point where my memory starts getting really hazy of what happened. Like, I don't know if this sounds stupid to anyone hearing, like, me get super worked up over it. Like, I know some friends have told me, like, because fish are so mistreated a lot of times that they're, like, really desensitized to it. If other people are thinking like that, like, that's fine. I'm sure that a lot of me being worked up over it is heavily attributed to how mentally unwell I was already doing. But, like, this genuinely, like, traumatized me. And I've got gaps in my memory because I didn't want to think about it. So shortly after that, that fish that I originally thought was killing the other fish, the one that I had in the quarantine tank, and then I realized it was the shark, so I put him back in the community tank. His tail fin, he lost it. No idea how or why. I don't know. Did he fight someone? Did someone tear it off? I don't know. But it looked like his fin was replaced with a cotton ball, which meant that he had fin rot. And Google said that if he had fin rot, he needed medicine, but ultimately he would be fine. I didn't have the right medicine again, and it was really late, so all the stores were closed again. So I moved him to the quarantine tank so he could swim around in peace and not be bothered by anybody with his poor little tail. And I went to bed, and I was going to get him the medicine in the morning. And I wake up, and he's fucking gone. Without a trace. So, I tried to get a couple new fish. I think it was after a couple days. I don't remember how long. I know that my big tank was practically empty at this point. Of course, the quarantine tank was empty because everything inside of it just like went into the Bermuda Triangle, I guess, and just ejected into outer space. I think one fish in the big tank got greedy and ate all of the food that was meant for the other fish too quickly, and he ate himself to death. So, stomach burst. That was cool. Thanks, my man. And I think I was cleaning the big tank because the algae was growing way too fast. I genuinely can't remember exactly, because I know the fish were in the quarantine tank for longer than I was cleaning it. I don't remember why. I know I had a reason. I know I had a fucking reason, but I can't remember it. And just like 3 more fish just like vanished into thin air. And I'm down to like 2. I had all these fish. I have like none left. And I don't even know what the hell. There were a couple of gnats in the house, and like really, in retrospect, hardly any. Bugs get in houses sometimes, and I live in an area with a lot of bugs, and I don't know, I got paranoid. Like, I was so distraught over the thought of finding another dead fish that I genuinely couldn't stomach the idea of being in my room anymore. Like, my own room, I couldn't be in there. And I had this paranoid delusion in my head that because I was starting to see a couple gnats here and there, that must mean that there were fish carcasses just on my floor, and they're just rotting there. And one day I'm gonna move my furniture, and I'm gonna find like maggots and gnats and everything. I was freaked out, and I don't know how to articulate more clearly that I was literally starting to get anxiety attacks just from being in my room, because that's where the fish tank was, and I was scared of another bad thing happening. And I was so distraught over this that I couldn't sleep. Like, I stayed in the living room. I wouldn't sleep in my bed. I stayed in the living room for 2 nights in a row. And I was awake for those 2 nights in a row. I did not sleep for, like, what's 48 plus 24? Is that 62? I don't know. I was awake for 3 days and 2 nights. I did not sleep at all. Like, my body was exhausted, and I wanted to sleep, but my mind was, like, wired, and it wouldn't let me. And I couldn't. Like, I couldn't. It didn't help that I'm on edge when I'm in the dark kind of anyway. Like, usually in my room, I'm fine with it because it's, like, my room and I feel safe in there. But especially when I'm in, like, open spaces like the living room, I get kind of antsy about it. But, like, usually I can sleep out there fine. But I was so extra antsy that the first night I was just awake all night and I was like, whatever, I'll just draw while I'm awake. It's fine. But the second night was probably one of the worst nights of my life. I don't know if it's because I was already high-strung and stressed out, or if it was purely the lack of sleep. But the entire night, I was having auditory and visual hallucinations. Like, I kept hearing things that sounded like people talking, but I couldn't discern the words. Or I put on a show on TV to distract myself, and it was like a show that I've seen a million times before. I love this show. And I could hear the background music so loudly, but for as many times as I've seen this episode before, I've never noticed, like, loud background music before. And furthermore, I wasn't hearing it from the TV. Like, I was so distinctly hearing it from the floor and not the TV, and there were so many, like, sounds that were disjointed that I had no business hearing, and most of the images that I looked at looked like they were moving or swimming, and, like, I would send Twitter links to my friends and be like, please, is this an animated GIF? And they're like, no, Reagan, it's a still image. I'm like, cool, nothing was normal. You know, I was so aware that nothing happening that night was normal, and I knew I wouldn't be able to calm down until the sun was up, and I wasn't calm anyway because I was paranoid over anything, and I just had to deal with that. Like, just being scared half to death until morning. 8 hours, 12, I don't know how long it's dark. Morning comes, and I called my mom, and I asked if I could, like, pay her roommate to come clean and search my room for me, to just assure me that there were no fish carcasses hiding under my furniture, and that I was safe, and tell me that it was all in my head. I needed someone to just tell me that it was in my head, and her friend came over to make sure it was safe so I could go back in. She searched my whole room. She assured me that there weren't any fish on the floor. She made everything look nice because I was so upset about the fish tank that I couldn't stomach being in there long enough to make my bed or clean up after my cat. So my room was given, like, the all clear, and I went in and I felt a little better, but it didn't feel over yet. So I called a different friend at this point because, I don't know, if the fish weren't on the floor, and I was really, really convinced that it wasn't my cat just scooping them out. Like, if it wasn't either of those things, I wanted to know for sure if it was that they jumped out and that she ate them then, or, you know, like, I wanted to know so that I could put it out of my mind, but I wasn't sure that was it. So I sat there and I racked my brain for anything else that it could have possibly been. And all I could think was that maybe, even though it sounded fucking stupid, I don't know, like, I was sitting there and I was like, there's no way. But I was still seriously considering, like, what if they disappeared inside of the tank? So I called my friend who's really good with taking things apart and putting them back together, and I asked him if he could come take the filter apart for me. So again, this tank isn't very big, and the filter's a lot smaller. I really couldn't for the life of me imagine a fish getting in there, but I had to be sure. Like, I wanted it out of my mind. I wanted, if they weren't in there, then she ate them, and then I could just, like, go to bed, you know? Like, then at least I knew. So he bless him, he agreed. He came over, he brought gloves and everything, and he took the tank and its filter into my bathroom, and he started taking it apart over the sink. And the filter is set up like there's this really long, skinny L-shaped tube that goes into the water to suck in the water from the tank, and then it goes through the L shape into, like, this square chamber that actually filters the water, and the chamber sits, like, just outside of the tank. That's why there's the little hole in the lid. It's just for that little bit of the square to, like, latch on to the edge of the tank. And then the clean water that's filtered is left to fall back through this little hole and, like, water fall into the tank, because when it falls in, then, like, it gets air bubbles in and you oxygenate your water and, you know, all that good stuff. So he checked that square chamber to see if the fish jumped into there, like, through the hole where the waterfall was, because that seemed like the most likely place that a bunch of fish could be. You know, like, it wasn't big, but it was the biggest part of the filter, so, like, that, they'd have to be in there if they were in the filter, right? But he didn't find anything in there. So he took apart the rest that he could, and he was, like, running water through all of it. He ran water through that L-shaped tubing, and it was coming out fine, so it didn't seem like anything was blocking it. And from the bathroom, he was asking, like, how long the fish had been gone, because he was thinking, like, oh, if it had been a long time, maybe they liquefied, but it hadn't been a long time, because this all happened so quickly, and I'm in the middle of explaining that, and then I hear him scream. And, like, a moment later, he's calmed down, and he goes, found it! Apparently, he took the tube, and he held it up to his eye so he could try and look inside after he ran the water through it. And he said the fish fell out suddenly and almost landed in his mouth. Which, holy fuck, how did that get in there? And, like, frankly, it was a relief. Like, okay, so there's one of them. But he said it was one fish. And I was still hiding on my bed because I wasn't sure that I wanted to see it. But I asked him to describe the fish so I could try and figure out, like, which one it was. And his description didn't sound like any of the fish that I lost. So I was really confused. So I finally, I wanted to say, like, oh, it's just one fish. I don't really need to know which one, but I wanted to know. So I finally braved getting up, and I went to go check on the corpse. And, God, guys, have you seen 1982's The Thing? Because all the fish were there, all of them, and they had assimilated. All the fucking fish were there, and they just fucking melted together. Like, just all of them were apparently sucked into this really tiny, really mighty filter, just one by one, and melted together. As one last fuck you from the pet store, I suppose. And it was horrifying. But it was over. Like, I had my answers. I knew what happened. Yay! I took that filter and I threw it out immediately. Like, fuck it. I've since I got a new, smaller tank that isn't dangerous to the fish populace. I filled the big tank with nice, peaceful, stupid, sweet, silly Blackmore goldfish and one really big, fancy white goldfish. And all the Blackmores are named cranberry, cherry, apple, and pumpkin according to their eye size. And the big fancy one is named Mr. Grippable Biggums. And this tank has, since having its lovely bumper car goldfish, it has had no casualties. And I can finally just enjoy my fish. And I am not afraid to say that I love Mr. Grippable so much that I think I'll probably have another breakdown if anything happens to him. I like to stare at him. He brings me joy. That's the story of how the tank that I got to make me happy made my life significantly worse for a bit. Like I said before, I'm getting a little better. Talking about this was also stressful, but again, maybe we can laugh about it together. I'm trying to get back to regular work. I did have a bunch of videos half started, so I'm hoping I can finish those up relatively quickly and get more videos up soon. Thank you so much to everyone for being patient with me. I would like to go sleep again for a bit now, so without further ado, also thank you so much to my patrons. It's $2 a month to see anything that I'm working on, and it's $10 a month to get your names read at the end of my videos just like this. Thank you so much to Evelyn Jake, Mukichigo, Nico Star C, Hedda Hart, Fallen Zippo, Namorphous, Taylor, Teeny Tiny Draws, Mickey On, Sleep Z, Mercy Mayhem, Trash Zuma, Sean M, Matsuo Tanuki, Inger Lise, Eggs Machina, Roberto Guardiola Noriga, Devin Hoffarth, Honeybee, Jinx Neon, That's Bobby, Katie, Preston, Luna Lou the Mew, Kyukanhime, Zelphus, Gavalanting Galliforms, Nomi Starry, Patty Melt, Orion Horizon, Nikine68, Malochu, Hatsuwu, Aravis Now, Cookie Brook, Kurt Coleman, Lemon Milk, Night Mage 14, It's Katie, Key the Queen, Blue Horseman 5, Jordan Ripley, Johnny Ariano, That Awesome Jude, Sayarika, Crumunch, Jeremy Readinger, Wet Father, Luna Yoku, Starla Herman, Ace No Thanks Hannah, Madad Dog, Maddie, Red Panda Seas, Hannah Lovell, Shortcake Snake, Doki Doki Precure, Cryptid Sketches, Cheese Sprout, Lizzie Shiro, Benjamator, The Legend of Alice, Raven Troll, Tristan, Giltris, Cat Dagger 2, Yuka, William Birch, Dravar, Thomas Reese, Dojo Kid, The Shalaxian, Minnow Candy, Goof, J. Jupiter, DDX, Golden Rose Monsters, Lane, Swagmaster, Uwu, I Have Evolved, Silent Calling, Firework Cat 25, T Arctic 1, Dusk, Decot Andrew, Da Art Chick, Nuz, formerly Kaisa, Zachary Borgs, Risuri Ann, William Maxwell, William, White Rhino 2222, Inferno Hurricane, Lyrathu, Isak Boba, Johnny Stars, Arowo, Reagan Kindred, Fox Dragoon, Silver Shadow, Shanzaya, Shay L, Hikari, Sarah, Izhiwo, Nikozawa, Nifty, RubyX KubiXO, Uwu Musuku Owo, Seb, Some Guy, IDK, Caitlin, Stymphalion, Stratus Winds, Stupid Genius, Ali Mocha, Tentasculus, Swift Chaos, Gauze, Fairy Armor, Night Morrow, Skulldackery, Chris Sigma, Dracos, It's They, Richie Grace, Scully Sweet, Thunder Evermore, Ash Fear, Bacundles of Clowns, Nerdy Beast, Womelsdorf Art Lauren, William X, Ven Light 98, Aswick, Chorio, Anna Grace Mulgrew, Madu, Cayenne Pepper, Berserker 102, Sydney Moore, Artist Gamer Mage, Buddy, Phantom Bagel, Collar 3 Tora, Dragoth, Cami Lario, Creepy Canvas, Disassociated Doodlers, Dead Times, James Zamora, Grand Finale, Artist number 580, Madison, Strongbones, Field of Starlight, Arwen, Plasma User, Square Heart, Nyx Flames, Gus Daniels, Hatchie Yubi, Anadog Platonic 1, Helix, Fox, Candy Babes, Christian Pip, Azaria, Clisel, Dylan Nyler, Sinister Stephanie, Boring Studios, DJ Cat Meow, Charmaine Lee, Winter Boy II, Becca Babe, Archibald Anarchy, Dust Munchies, The Orc Cafe, Kitty Freak, Drew Dog, Andrew Robinson, Andre, Junimo, Dragon Girl, Yakumo Soul Queen, Peachy Mint, Andrew Watson, Ray, Ghostly Goat, It's Daddy AJTU, Rowan, Matcha AX, that's fun. Steelex, Joss Beasley, Hazy Hideaway, Spirit of Avalon, Drew Warren, Princess of Pastel, Furryfied Arts, TV Island, Sound Alchemy, Pressy Antique, Antiqua, Embla, Salmon Pro 16, Dirk Henry, The Unchosen One, Mimin, Violet Cat, Jessie M, Makaru, June, Tainshi, Triple Stone, Kristaru, Hikari Yu, The Scorch Blaze, Jakey Jellybean, Jacob Goodwin, Weasel Bites, Daphne Jolly, Danny Glitter, Emma Joy, Doodle Crazy Meg, Piers, Dirt, Ego, Cider Bun, Chia Rico, Cody Richard, Kiger, Colt A. Schnell, Arctic Sentry, Drex, a Gremlin, Coda, Werwin, Ethan Gardner, Jason, Spoofdy, Isn't It Romantic, Eugius, Dylan X, Phantom Kiddo 2, Jaden Key, Everly, and Blue Daniel 16. No Kabuki this time, I'm so sorry. And then, I am discontinuing my $100 tier because it was causing a bit more problems than I anticipated. It was getting to a point that some boundaries were kind of being crossed. So for now, the $100 tier is closing. I've had some people ask. I might bring it back one day, but with a different purpose. I don't know. Maybe it'll be like getting cameos in videos or comics or something whenever I get on top of those. But as of right now, these people are still donating $100. So thank you so extra very much to Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Felipa Morla, Russell the Jimmies, Fisheye Placebo, Weebulus, Tara Meringue, Ginger Emu, True Swing, Flaming Turd Cannon, Cryptid Cam Rick, and Lemon Doggo. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will be back soon in better spirits, and I hope you're having a great day. See you guys later. Bye!